delighted to welcome Colin. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, obviously we should know Colin. Obviously, been involved in football for many years. I won't say how many, just in case it gives away just how long and Carl's age. But obviously, for those of you that know, obviously Carl is head coach of our senior powerchair side and led the team to glory last year in Finland. And therefore being the first team to win a major senior international trophy since 1966. We're absolutely delighted to have him here tonight to talk about the England DNA and how the team play, to give you all an insight into that style of play. It's nice that we've got a couple of senior internationals here tonight as well, so that it can support you, whether you're a player and you've got aspirations of wanting to play for England one day, or whether you are a coach and you want to try and support the development of your players to try and reach as high a level as possible. So I'm absolutely certain we'll get some fantastic insight tonight. So Colin, thank you very much. And over to you. You've got the ability to be able to share when you're ready.
See, I'm not sure I have got the ability to share. I have my assistant to the right will be helping me out, hopefully. Thanks very much for the invitation. Delighted to take the opportunity to do this. It's, I think, something that we should do more often and more regular. And I know that you and I, Adam, have been talking about this, and in better times, hopefully we can do this face to face. But really, over the last 2-3 weeks, we've been asked by the FA to put together a real up-to-date DNA of what we're about, what we've achieved so far, and what we look to do. And I'm not against sharing everything that we do with everybody. I think it's for the betterment of the sport, and I only think that we're going to grow and get better as a sport the more that we share with each other. And the biggest thing for me was to make people appreciate, because I'm not so daft as to think that people don't question, well, what have I got to do to be an England player? What have I got to be good at, etc., etc. But I need to make people fully aware that to come to England, we're not going to be about improving your technique. If you don't have the techniques in place to be an England international player, that we can't help you. We need your techniques to be as good as they can possibly be, for you to come along, that you are then capable to take on board the tactical and technical information that we're going to pass on to you. So this is about the why we feel that we've discovered a way of playing that is unique to the rest of the world and gives us an edge in any situation. So I'm quite comfortable and more than open with sharing everything we can. Now, what I'm going to do now is try and share our DNA with you, and I'm just going to call upon my glamorous assistant to press a few buttons for me. Here comes my glamorous assistant now. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, come from my end, Cole.
Yeah, okay, cool. So as I said, this is what we've put through to Andy Smith and obviously with Jeff at the FA, and we've got a meeting coming up in St George's Park in the near future, because everybody wants to know about us, and we share information through all the disability sports. So this is our DNA, our culture and our values. Obviously, we're proud to be part of a developing and a winning England culture. And obviously, as it goes without saying, that we aim to be pioneers of the sport and create new boundaries. And we strive for excellence through that. Now, our first stage of excellence is that obviously we won the European Champions League recently, which was great. But we want to be World Cup winners, and so we want to keep developing and growing. How we play, as it says, my glamorous assistant is leaning across me at the minute. What I wanted to create was the opportunity for every player who plays the sport to feel the same things as I felt when I played, and I think that the chairs now give us that. But on top of that, we want to find a way of playing that gives every player an opportunity to play a part in a successful team. So it's based on possession football, as long as you can have possession in a wheelchair. And Obviously, transition's a big thing. The ball does swap sides a great deal, but we've shown and I've got clips tonight to show where we've maintained possession for any number of passes, but possession with a purpose. So we aim to be intelligent and controlled in our passing and style of play. And we're trying to take people out of position so we can exploit the spaces that we create. Out of position, we try to drop into a low block, restrict space, but we want that low block to be a platform. Again, we've got video evidence of a platform for us to break out quickly in counter-attack to be dangerous to the opposition. And the clips that we have are against, in the main, some of the best teams in the world. So we have a 4-out system that everybody questioned whether it was possible, practical, and whether it wasn't some form of suicide. So our goalkeeper is a pivot and a major part of our outfield play. And so what we're trying to do is create overloads in any given situation where we will have an extra man in outfield play. And this slide will probably cover that. So as you can see here, that our first pivot would be the man nearest the ball, which would be in an England case, if we go about the team that played in the final, that would be John. And the second pivot off a little bit of an angle to John would be Chris. Now that allows us to play into Chris, into the second pivot, to play backwards and to create the space in the room to switch play. And then John can roam into an area as the first pivot to feed and create triangles around the edge of the opposition's box. It allows us to play 2 speeds, so we can play slowly back and build up slowly. But when we play into the first pivot, which is John, we then speed things up quickly to move the opposition's goalkeeper around. But the key to this is the wingers always have to play in a reverse position, that they're facing the pivots, not facing away, but facing the pivots. And we constantly talk about chair preparation. Now, the classic example here is a goal that you're all fully aware of in the World Cup finals against France, who went on to win the tournament. But as you know, we did get our own back later on. So this is probably the best goal I've ever seen scored in wheelchair football, but it encapsulates everything that we talk about. So I'm just going to play this through and I'll do a little bit of a running commentary as we go. So John's obviously playing, John's on the ball and Ed dummies it. Now, we're not afraid to play backwards. First pass backwards, second pass backwards into Chris. So we're moving the opposition 2 touch. Brave enough to take 2 touches to suck Momo in, switch the play, and then ultimately finish probably one of the best goals we've ever seen. And certainly was voted the best goal in the World Cup. But that's continuous play, playing backwards, being brave enough to use the space and to play backwards. Mac, have you any questions around anything that we've said so far?
No, we're going to get a question coming up related to out of possession around low block. So when you get to it, it'll be, can you explain about what low block means?
And so really what we look to do, and I must say that this has evolved and it evolved through all of the players in the meeting, probably maybe after the second day in the tournament, and after we played France the first time, and we adapted our low block to be a point of counter-attack. So in effect, what we want to do is to allow people to play in front of us, to commit a pass or a shot that we're allowed to intercept, but to turn that very, very quickly into our advantage. Now, so obviously we're forcing the player to play in front of, forcing the opposition to play in front of us. We're patient and ready to intercept, but the patience has to be to recognize the right ball that we can pass out of defense to create a quick attack. And so I'll just show you the highlight of the tournament for me was exactly that. And I'll show you that clip now against France in the final. So we've set up, I can't stop it. Marcus has taken Momo out of his comfort zone, so he's gone into an area, but Marcus is not marking Momo now. Chris plays the pass to Ed. Marcus is released. Momo can't catch him up, and the rest is history. So we've used their first pass into us, but Chris has made sure the first pass that we play out is a pass. It's not just a clearance. And then 2 passes later, we're back in the game and back in the tournament. So do you want to fire that question away now, Ad?
Yeah, so it was just, can you explain the term low block, please?
So if I'm explaining, have we got everything? We've got it on screen now. So in effect, in general play, and I think we've got a better example later on, where it's in general play, where we drop to the goalkeeper, drops deep, John drops in with him, Ed supports, and excuse all the other England players. I'm obviously referring to the lads who played in the final at the moment, but Marcus, being Marcus, is a nuisance. He goes and occupies their best player, but he takes them into an area where he doesn't want to be. But our thought is, how do we get to their goal as quickly and as economically as possible? And for that reason, and to that end, this can I replay this? Yeah. This is a perfect example. So we're setting up deep, and I think that in John and Chris, we've got 2 of the best defensive minds in world football. So we don't need to have 4 people back defending, but we need to be in areas where we can quickly take defense into attack. So if I replay it again, Chris's interception here, and we're sucking him into this. Marcus is very, very intelligent by occupying Momo to the point that he goes away and out of his space. So Chris's pass, Ed's pass, 2 passes goal from a low block. So I think that's quite self-explanatory. Macca, have you got anything else around that?
No, nothing yet. Carry on.
Excuse me 1 second. So what we look for at position specific from a goalkeeper, we've got your goalkeeper has to have good game understanding. He has to appreciate tactically what the whole team's about. But the biggest thing is, if you're going to go and get involved in the game, you have to recognize danger, because one errant pass or one clearance or one punt up the pitch can be a goal if you're out of position. So in the way we play the goalkeeper is always in the line with the ball. So any clearance or any long ball, and I think we've only conceded maybe 1 goal in all of our time where the ball's gone the length of the pitch into an unguarded net. But we need the goalkeeper to contribute into the attacking play. So he needs to become the 4th man when we're in possession of the ball. He needs to take up good deep positions so it can be an outlet for us to switch the play. Now, what it does allow then, if we've got 2 pivots, and in one case will be John and the second Chris, it allows the opposite player to get as wide and as deep as they possibly can. So stretching the play as wide as possible and allowing a good range of passing. But obviously we want the goalkeeper to be as difficult to beat as possible, very strong in one-on-ones, but also very agile and very mobile at getting across the line, but intelligent enough to pair up when you are facing threats around the box. Because invariably, John and Chris defended, or Matt or an Ed sometimes have to defend on their own, because the nature of the game, we can't get another man in the box, obviously, but the other 2 wide players are thinking about that transition from defense to attack. So that's the goalkeeping position. Have anybody got any more questions or anything specific to ask about the goalkeeping position? No, Macca?
Nothing as yet, Colin.
No problem. Now the centre player who historically has been the one that's driven the ball up and down the court in a game of robot wars, and if it's France, they still do it. The centre player obviously has got to be able to balance the goalkeeper off. If the goalkeeper comes into support the play, the second player has to have the intelligence to fill that space. But more importantly, and we might get a question about this position, he has to always be aware of what we call the pop-off position. So when the ball goes into the goalkeeper invariably is looking to switch play, but sometimes be able to drop that ball into, in this instance, John. So John then can dictate the play from the first pivot position. So the ball might go back to Chris, but that centre man has got to make himself available to that little drop-off ball, pop-off position, as we call it, where Chris just knocks the ball 5 yards to John, and then John determines what happens around the box and creates the build-up and the movement of play. So sometimes that might be to go and get the ball off a long pass from Chris to a wide player and go and support it around the edge of the box, or it might be just to get into the pop-off position where Chris finds him, and then John creates the momentum from there. So really, we're looking for someone with great game awareness, a defensive mind and a defensive brain, because you're going to have to drop in with the goalkeeper and defend sometimes 3v2, very rarely 4v2, but definitely 3v2. And also someone with the good vision and ability to play through the lines. Yes, we still have elements where the centre pivot has to go into one-on-ones and go into battles, because that's part of the game. But, you know, invariably what we're looking for is someone who's bright enough to move the ball early and not have to get involved in that type of conflict on the pitch. So the centre pivot is a huge role to the team, but probably not as important a role as it was historically, where everything revolved around him. We're giving the centre player now the opportunity to drop up into wide areas and to balance off the goalkeeper and receive the ball in what I would call an inside right and an inside left position. And that, for some of the older members listening, they'd appreciate, rather than being right on the touchline, but still in ability to dictate play. The next slide is probably for us the most important. These two guys have to be always aware of their chair position and be able to control their chair in reverse. We've got to have them facing the play. Why? Because we've got to see what's going on, but more importantly, it gives them a perfect position to set, to spin early passes back into the middle position, or also to switch play, as Ed created that chance for Marcus in the final, and also the great goal that we've just seen finish, whereby one wing player can pass to the other wing player to create an opportunity for us to score great goals on the break. They also need to be aware of when the ball is going to be switched around the far post area. So the position of most opportunity, or the POMO as we call it, if that ball is switched, because we don't want the wide player, the middle player, to be shooting at goal for no reason. The number of shots that I see that basically have done so he can get a new from the crowd that is never going to lead to a goal is astounding. Excuse me. It's very difficult to hit the ball through a chair. In fact, I've never seen it done. So I don't know why people shoot at goal when they know they can't score. The whole point of the play that we create is to keep the ball moving. And when we do switch the ball to the far post, the person in the POMO position should have an easy front bumper or reverse spin into an open goal, because we've moved people around. We need them to be able to play off their front bumper, because we're looking for that little setting up ball, that little dead ball into the centre man, so we can keep play going. They have to be very, very accurate off their front bumper. So when you're facing the play, sometimes it's only a little touch. What Marcus does particularly well, and Ed, is they wait for the middleman to come to them, and they just suck them in, and they just pop it off to John, and we switch the play on them. So always playing in reverse, always facing the pivots, and have the ability to switch play, good technique, and also to play off the front bumper for little setup balls. When we are defending, they need to be able to slow the attacks down so we can get into the low block, but they also need to be bright enough to appreciate when we can transition into attacking play. So those are the three main positions that we work on, and the only positions on the pitch, to be honest, Macca. So if there's anything else to pick up on there, so I can stop myself choking.
We did have an earlier question in reference to as a goalkeeper, what would you as a coach class as unnecessary risks?
Unnecessary risks. Yeah, we've had a couple where, you know, you're playing into areas where the opposition are going to put you under pressure. But more importantly, I think playing blind. So when the ball comes to you, not being aware of the passing lanes and playing blind, because that can actually take you completely out of the game and cause a goal. But as I say, I think up to now I can only remember one where we've had that happen. So you need to understand that you're the last man, and any mistake from you is going to be a goal. So you don't take risks in areas where that can be turned into a goal.
Great stuff. And then in relation to the wingers, but in an out of possession situation, what responsibilities are given to them?
They need to appreciate that maybe we've been caught, maybe John or Chris, someone's been caught up the pitch. So they need to have good game awareness to get back and cover. They need to be able to rotate round. So sometimes when they've tried to work a situation in the corner and it hasn't worked out and John's got involved, they need to clear the space so we don't give 2-on-1s away. But they need to be aware at all times that they need to help the defence out. So they need to slow things down and make the opposition play in front of them. Okay, mate?
Fantastic.
So we've got another video clip here. And this is just the pop-off position. What we're talking about, how it goes into second pivot, which is Chris, over to John, and then John finishes off, which I think was our first goal of the tournament. So that's a classic example of why you have 4 people out. There wasn't enough pace on the ball for Chris to hit the full diagonal. So just popped it off to John, and John's done the rest. And he decided to shoot. Surprise, surprise, Baldy. But there you go. But it's got us up and running for the whole tournament. Sorry, keep playing it. I was loads. Hold on, Chris has told me there's more videos. Okay. Okay, so we'll just let this one run through again. Chris is in good support. John's appreciated the space and finished it off. And the opposition wasn't overly strong, but you've got to score your first goal, and that got us on the way for the whole tournament. And this one is where we play. John's dummied the ball. And you look now, Chris has come in as second pivot. There's John again. And I think this would have been goal of the tournament, but for chair preparation. So we didn't get it right all the time. And again, playing back. John's in the pop-off position. Brilliant 2-touch from Brad. Fantastic goal. Fantastic goal. So the wide players have to be confident and comfortable they can play 2 touches. If you notice how Brad sucked the defender towards him and then just released it to the pivot. This is quick transitional play that we spoke about before. So Chris, pass out, Marcus, and Ed hitting the post, which was really unlucky. But that's 2 passes again. 2 passes the length of the pitch. And then we're in a position to pressure the opposition. So it's out. But if it's just cleared for clearing's sake, we don't find that pass. You need to appreciate that the Chris there is playing a pass. Lovely touch from John. Great awareness. Brilliant finish. And look at Ed in reverse there. You can just as easy be on front bumper, but in a lovely reverse position to knock that in. Playing backwards, great switch of play. Marcus again, tremendous. Great football, unlucky. Recycle. Great. Again in reverse. Ed again, genius. And then Marcus and John having a bit of a meltdown between them. But great sustained play. And this is patience. You don't have to force it. We'll just keep playing, keep moving it, keep moving them around. Great play. and the two of the best wide players in the world because they understand their roles. And so we're looking for the two touch here. Marcus and John being patient. Great movement from John. And just look how we work the opposition and make them move around. And it's, you know, it's tremendous to watch. And obviously we're getting tremendous compliments for it, but we believe that we've got many, many more pages to turn over. Again, playing in reverse, Marcus, Ed, front bumper finish. It's a great example of wide players linking up. And this one is something that we've worked on, and we call it the Toby all the way around, because if we show it again, Marcus's skill here, just to be patient on the ball and then just whip it all the way around. And it's a skill that I would like to see everybody practice, where the ball's on the left-hand side of your chair, but rather than going the conventional way, you go all the way around, and can you switch the play to the opposite side? We've had some great examples in training. We've had some absolute disasters, but it's something that we are working on. When it comes to techniques, what we find, and I'd like to talk to coaches about this, when we set up with England, when we go away, we use the badminton courts and we set up a game of wheelchair tennis, sometimes in pairs and sometimes individually, but every technique that you will use on the pitch is set up in those games of tennis. And some of the games, they are very, very competitive, very, very furiously fast. And some of the techniques being used that are off the scale. But we find that is a great preparation to go into training, because we've worked on every technique in those training sessions, in those games of tennis, before we go then into, right, come on boys, we're about the tactical work now. And we think that the development around the techniques have come from the tennis. And I think that every club should be working on, you all have badminton courts on your training facilities. We'll let you know how it goes, how to set it up. But it's a great example to get the techniques flowing in what you need to be successful, we think, in this sport. So, any more, Macca? Anything else of any note?
I've got a question in relation to Pomo for the wingers.
Yeah.
So, from your point of view, for Pomo, does it start in the final third, or is it only around the penalty area, in the edge of the penalty area?
No, I think it can start in the final third, because we can switch the play from anywhere. But what we actually do in that position is you make the goal bigger. If you can imagine, if the ball comes to John in the first pivot and he's shooting from maybe 15 yards out, if he's aiming to hit the ball inside the far post, then that's quite tight. But if you've got someone who can make the goal even bigger, and you can hit outside of the far post, so that wide player always needs to be aware. But I can remember going back to Limerick, where we did some analysis work, and we were actually too narrow in those areas. And the Belgian team at that time all had strike forces, and we had 2 strike forces, but I think we had 1 on the pitch at the time. And what we were doing too quickly was getting too close to the far post, and we weren't making the goalkeeper travel far enough. So having the intelligence to recognize that you don't need to be right on top of the goalpost sometimes, because you're not there to score all of the time. You might be there just to create an option to bounce the ball back to the middleman, who switches it across to the far side. So it's appreciating that nothing gets past you and the far post. So you have to always be there, but not that you go and cramp that space down and make it easy for the goalkeeper or the opposition defender to close you down as well. So it's a skill, and it's a skill that I say in the main that we've done particularly well, and our wide players have done particularly well. But it was a very good question.
Lovely, thanks, Cole.
So, how do we develop this? Now, what we do, obviously, we are always talking tactically, but we don't talk to the players. The feedback that we get from the players, they're all very intelligent footballers. I've never sat in a chair and played a game. We have to take the feedback from the players, and particularly halfway through the tournament last time, I think John and Chris had come after the French game and said, look, we might have to change our tactics here. We took it on board and we developed the plan to go and do what we did to them in the final. So we're always being tactically aware, not just being aware of the opposition, but also learning from our own players and from ourselves. But to do that, we analyze and we film every training session, and we look back after every game and we analyze everything from good and bad. So we're always looking to learn. But and there's a point here, point 3 here is very, very important. We respect that the players are elite athletes and they are technically proficient. And that allows us to work exclusively on the tactical development. So how do we become technically proficient? We practice, 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 practice. But we don't practice when we're at England training camps. These lads go away and train on their own, or they train with teams, but they work harder than anybody can work to be as good as they can be. We can't have people coming to England training camps that can't master the techniques needed to play at England level. So that's the way that we are. That's our DNA. We have to be tactically better than the opposition. Technically has to be a given. So that, is there anybody got any points around that at all? Because I think I don't want to be cruel, but it's factual. You won't get selected for England if you can't do all of the skills needed technically to be a top player. There is no hiding place. If you're playing 4 players out and every player knows every position, I could play everybody pretty much in every position on the pitch and be confident that they could do it. And so tactically, they know the game, but they are technically proficient to be able to carry out what we need from them tactically. So and the final line is that we will always strive to be forward-thinking and leaders and advancements of the sport off and on the pitch. And that's exactly what we are. We get fantastic support from our FA. We're allowed to develop and grow. And obviously we're allowed then to bring in great support staff. And even Erin was a magnificent support for us psychologically for us in Finland. And we got tremendous work from Nick on the analysis side. And so we get tremendous support staff. But we are very, very grateful to receive that support. But I think also the players are worthy of that support. And that's the biggest thing. They're worthy because of how hard they work and how much this sport means to them. The future England player. Well, obviously, we want to work. Mackie, you've got a lot of things going on with pathways at the moment, and we want to find the players of tomorrow. There's a lot of our lads getting older and older. One of them sat next to me. Another one's on this call, and they're not going to be here forever. They're going to be very, very difficult to replace. But I think players should be looking to replace them from their performances now, rather than waiting for them to to scoot off into the distance and never to be seen again. So I want every player now to be looking at development. How can they become an England player? We will share every bit of information we can with all coaches, and we would look to find and help the pathway for the next generation of top players. And so in the last slide, I think, so our philosophy of obviously a controlled passing style of play. Be prepared to play backwards. Obviously for us, it's with the first and second pivot to switch the point of attack, to create overloads by utilizing the goalkeeper or the second pivot, focus on player movement to create passing lanes, move the ball patiently, effectively, to create the best opportunity to score. And I've discussed this many times. The number of times I see people shoot at goal when they can't score drives me up the wall. If you can't score, don't shoot. Pass the ball, create the opportunities to score. And then finally, we focus on quick and effective transition from defense to attack, which you've seen great examples of during this presentation. Player techniques that we would like you to go away and work on. 2-touch. Can you play, control the ball and pass the ball off your second touch? Can you play in reverse? Do you have a good passing range on both sides? Are you aware of what the pick-off means? So that means the wide players who are in reverse positions just get there before the opposition to play the ball back to first or second pivot so we can switch play. Competitive dribbling, 1v1s. Obviously, there are times when you have to dribble. We are trying to become a fully passing team, but there are times where you go into 1v1s against the Momos of this world and you need to be able to cope 1v1 against a player with such power and such great technique. So that's the techniques that we'd like people to go away and work on constantly for us to improve the opportunity for us to go and win a World Cup, and hopefully many more. So that in essence is what we're about. Is this a final slide on the tactical knowledge, good game awareness and understanding, an ability to digest information and play to instruction, but an ability also to feed back information, I think, is as important. An understanding of every position on the team, not just your own. The ability to communicate well is vital, and recognize when to enforce an aggressive press or to regroup and go into a low block to set up the counter-attacking, but always be forward thinking. And that's us, Maka. I think I don't know how long that's taken, but it's taken a lot longer than 40 minutes for us to get to this position.
Lovely, fantastic, Cole. I think what we'll do is I've got a couple of questions to ask now.
Yeah.
And then once you've answered those, I'll open it up for further questions from people that haven't asked anything at the moment. So initially, it's how critical, in your opinion, is verbal communication between players?
It is vital, and is certainly between the goalkeeper and the centre man. Obviously, we got the two loudest players on the planet, fortunately, in our team. But then you've got Matt Francis, who's very, very vocal as well. I think that's important. The wide players, probably because they're a little bit further away, at times when you're attacking, they're more on instinct. They work more on instinct. But the messages from your main player, so your central player and your goalkeeper, are absolutely vital. So, but I think in the main, it's very, very important.
And linking to that, are players encouraged to take risks, or is it to stick to the structure and the game plan that you've set out?
No, we love to see individual flair, but in the right areas. But the awareness to convert at the end of the day. Flair is great, but if it's wasted and it's actually causing you more harm than good, because if a player decides that he wants to go and do his own thing and we're not set up for it, in this sport, it can be a goal with one ricochet. It can be a goal. So that's the difference, really. Yeah, we want flair, and when Marcus did the Toby all the way around in that game, that's what we want to see. We want to see people trying these things, but he did it with a purpose, and he did it to create a goal. And so, there has to be a purpose to it.
And linking to that and kind of that thinking process and building the confidence, what would you say to encourage, or how do you work with players to build that confidence in playing backwards and keeping hold of the ball for longer rather than looking to play forwards?
It wasn't easy. And you've got to remember, when we started this process, we were in storm chairs. So it's even less doable. It wasn't easy, but it became apparent very quickly. When you're working with very, very bright minds and gifted players, you don't have to sell it, because as soon as they see it and understand it, they believe. And I think probably what John would admit, he's on the call, John was skeptical to start with, and because you know, John's come the sport all the way through, and he was a main player, and he is a main player, he's the best players in the world. So, but the point is that John was very skeptical that, well, if the goalkeeper comes out and what, you know, where's the protection, etc., etc. And, you know, we're just creating more opportunities for the opposition to score against us. But if you show it and they see it, very, very quickly they believe in it. And I don't think that you could get sort of bigger believers than we have now.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And linking to what you just said around showing it and seeing it, in developing players' understanding, and not necessarily just at, obviously at senior international level, you know, how much time, or certainly from your point of view, how much time has been spent on video analysis, and do you recommend and advocate it at lower levels as well?
Absolutely. I think we do a load, and I think that we as a team used it better than any country in the World Cup, and also in Europe when we were in the championships in Finland. And if we hadn't used it, then certainly we wouldn't have been as successful as we were, you know, because sometimes people believe that they've done things the right way until you show them the evidence that they haven't. And, you know, and it doesn't take me to tell them that. Don't worry, the rest of the room will tell them very quickly. So, you know, sometimes the other thing is, and the beauty of this call is that we've highlighted areas where we've coached off good examples, apart from Brad Bates being in the wrong chair position for that would have been goal of the tournament. But, you know, but something like that, you don't have to tell Brad, because Brad would instantly put his hand up and said, I got that wrong, you know. But the point is, you also coach off good examples as well. You reinforce the message of good examples.
Fantastic. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up. That's all the questions that we've had so far on the chat. I'm going to open it up to anyone else if they'd like to ask a question to Colin live. They're more than welcome to do so.
And you're going to ask me if you're in the next squad, John?
No, I need to get back playing myself. I'm an amateur at the moment.
Everybody needs to play, mate. Dear me, that's the problem. I'll take my glasses off now in case you don't recognise me.
I'm just trying to take some coaching techniques, mate, from when I do retire.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, don't. They're all yours anyway. Don't worry about it.
I do have one from Alex. He says, why is it called Toby all the way around?
Because you go all the way around, and so it was Toby Alderweireld, whatever his name is, so we called it the Toby. So in effect, it's an absolute 360. Yeah, but it's a difficult skill, because you've got to imagine, probably, I would think 3/4 of that maneuver you're out of sight of the ball. And therefore also sometimes you're not even sure where the opposition is. So we have had some disasters, as you can imagine, some metal clanging. But no, it's a very, very good skill to have, because even with the new chairs, if you're coming forward from the midfield position with the ball on the right side of your bumper, and you want to pass the ball to the left, how do you go about it? It's a very, very difficult skill, and it's something that we appreciated. And the opposition's bright enough to know that if your pivot's got the ball on the one side of his chair, he can only play, more often than not, that way. So have the ability to, no, I'm not actually going there, and go all the way around and then hook it off the left side of your chair into the left channel is a great skill. And also it takes people out of position in the game. And Marcus showed a brilliant example of that. You know, in that particular game. So it's a fun name for a tremendously important bit of skill.
The other,
Fantastic.
so the other bit I was going to ask, Cole, there's two examples of the opposition sending the ball into the box, either as a shot or trying to find some space to pass through, and the ball coming out from Chris to one winger, cross ball to the other winger, and shot on goal or goal. Is that a routine that is practiced? Is it something that's a pattern of play that's rehearsed? Or is it a tactical bit of information that the team hold and know they're going to take, but don't necessarily practice it, just take it on as a sort of flowing those skills together?
Well, the fortunate thing is we're fortunate we can select a squad of 8. So when you're training, whether it be at St George's or whether we're at Lilleshall, and you can play more often than not 4v4, you know, we're looking, the players recognise that, you know, this is an opportunity. But if the 2 wide players don't take up the right positions in the first instance and recognise that we're under attack, and we say this a lot, we're defending our own box, but we can score here. Now, that's not something you'd normally hear in an 11-a-side game, you know. So we're saying we're defending our own box, but we can score here. But we can't score if Marcus goes into the corner against Momo in the game against France and goes and marks him, says, "Look at me, Gaffer, I'm doing my job." He's in no position to get on the end of Ed's ball when he switches it back to him. So Marcus has taken him to a position that they can't get the ball to Momo in that position. And Marcus is intelligent enough to take him out of that comfort zone on the edge of the box where he wanted to be, for him to go into the far corner. And then Marcus realizes then, well, there's my 5 yards. And so I know what my role will be. The ball is going to come out probably on the same side as it was delivered, which it did with Chris. And so I'm going to be the one that's going to be finishing here. Now, had it been the other side, Marcus would have dropped into the space, who would have been available for Chris or John to pass to him. And then the other players got to be ahead of the play. So it is something we work on totally. It's something we analyse a lot, but it's something we see a lot of in the 4v4s when we're training. You know, so
talking to Marcus in that position, then at some point in training, you said Momo's now moved into a position that you don't need to mark him because they can't get the ball to him.
Yeah.
Now's your chance to get some space.
Now's your chance to release, you know, because it might be that Chris, the ball stayed in the area, so we still want him in that space. Because if the ball had gone back to their pivot and he'd looked to switch it to Momo, we would have expected Marcus to drop into the space to cover that line, you know. But it's recognising, right, we're off. It's as quick as that. It's 2 passes and we can score.
So how conscious was Marcus's movement into that corner to take Momo there? Was that something?
I think one was he didn't want Momo in that position around the edge of the box because it was an easy switch for their pivot. So he wanted to go and be a nuisance, and Marcus can be a nuisance anywhere, as we all know. So, you know, and that's what we actually say. We do say be a nuisance. Be a nuisance. The wide players have got to go and be a nuisance, but we don't want them to go goal side. We want them to be a nuisance around the back bumper and not go goal side, because going goal side is giving up the space that we want to go into. So, you know, we want him to be a nuisance and be around that back bumper, because on the switcher play, I'd back John Balding to get there anyway. But if he starts the wrong side and John gets there, we don't get the clearance. We don't get the first pass. So, you know, we want him around the back bumper. And the fortunate thing is, and with Momo's pace, you probably do need 5-yard start on him anyway, you know, but we won't talk about that. But so it is something that we do instruct the players. Be a nuisance, but don't go and be on the defensive side of the play.
That's great insight. Thanks, Cole. Cheers.
Okay, no problem.
We did have another question from Alex Giles. It was asking, how much does the DNA feed down into the club game? And obviously I can initially answer that by saying, obviously the purpose of us having this workshop tonight is to start to kind of make inroads into the club game, and obviously look to work with you on that over the coming months and years ahead. That's
exactly right. I think that what we have to be able to do is to create almost like a coaching qualification and a pathway, so the coaches actually understand, you know, what we're trying to achieve. Look, every coach is entitled to coach the way that they think is right for their team. But what I'm saying is we're not going to change what we are and what we're about. If we can help them develop future England players, then it's going to be great for us. So, you know, it's not for me to say this is the way the game should be played. What I'm saying is that if you want to develop England players, they need to be technically proficient, tactically proficient to a point, because that's our job to educate them then. So, you know, I'm all for sharing knowledge and information and being available to anybody who wants to ask us any questions. And what we've got now is probably, well, more than 8. If you think of every England player that's been through, every one of those players now becomes a disciple of the way we play and have the ability to pass on information as well. And I think it's not just people picking the phone up to me or meeting me when I'm at games, etc., etc. It's every England player will tell you, and hopefully help every coach develop. But I think the sport will only get better when we can develop our coaching and to a level that you know, that really betters the game.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly. And I know that,
Shiloh, by the way.
yeah, from our point of view, we're working on trying to introduce measures to be able to support our coaches. And obviously this is just one small way of doing so. And obviously developing additional coaching content and providing that little bit more technical expertise and detail is something that I know I'm working on and WFA are working on, and looking to we'll look to tie in with you on that, you know, in the coming weeks and months ahead, to be able to make sure that we've got good content to be able to share with coaches, whether it's in the form of session plans and examples of drills and activities. But also I think, you know, obviously with the number that are here tonight, it's clear that this has been well received. So having future workshops where we're potentially talking about, and I know we discussed this yesterday around whether we look to do future workshops with yourself on support for coaches, then I think that's something that would be appreciated across the board.
We're just in awkward times at the moment, aren't we? You know, I know we've spoken a lot about maybe a Saturday in Nottingham where, you know, we could do some sessions, etc., and things like that. But look, when we get the chance, we will. And where possible, you know, we don't, it's not a closed shop, England training camps. I know it's difficult for everybody to travel, but if anybody wanted to come along, preferably, you know, if it was on a Saturday and we that wouldn't be a problem. You know, as long as you know, we're allowed, I'm not a problem with anybody coming along, seeing what we do and understanding what we're about. That's you know, that's, I think that, you know, it's our duty to try and make the sport better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can fully agree with that, because I've traveled myself to come and see you in training and watch the players and ask questions and, you know, pick your brain. So completely agree with that. It's always an open shop from your point of view. I got a question from Hannah, and she says that obviously in most clubs, there's a huge difference in range in ability, but as coaches, how can we look to challenge the top end of that ability to try and push them towards achieving their potential?
I think first and foremost, and I go back to this, I think it's techniques, working on techniques. And, you know, I think that when you have one sort of major player in the team, in any team, everything sort of revolves around them. And it's difficult then to incorporate a passing game and passing style. But that individual, as important he is to the team, you know, really has to have a full range of techniques. And we're talking about new techniques now, you know, with the Toby, but, you know, we generally want every player to be as good as they can be. Now, if I gave one thing from this as a way to develop that, I'll go back to the tennis. I think the tennis, to improve techniques in training, would help 100%, because it's not all about power. Sometimes you have to have touch. Sometimes you can take 2 touches, and, you know, so it really is great to develop techniques. So techniques is the most important thing, you know, and obviously I do appreciate that some teams will be stronger than others, and some teams will have better individuals than others, and you have to still try and work a way out to get results. So I'm not going to be critical of anybody that sets up to do as well as they can with the team that they have. But if you have a player that the top end, you feel has got the potential to be an England player, then they really need to work always on their technique.
Absolutely, thank you. And another question is, what do you think players can do during this time without football to help develop their understanding? Obviously, they can't be doing technical stuff, but what do you think they can do away from that?
I think do what we're doing, which is basically study old film. You know, if there's anything at all, you know, and that would be anything from the States, anything from Australia, anything from Japan, anything from wherever, really. I think, you know, being a student of the game is important, and there's enough film around from previous World Cups and championships and you know, even Champions League. You know, I think that's a big thing, and I think one thing that the French did have on us was great technique. They had very good equipment, but they had great technique as well. So there's always something to learn, and I know it's very, very difficult at the moment, but it won't be long now, chaps, and you know, we'll all be back at it. But if you have time at the moment, then study as much film as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty.
I'm
of
also
it.
a great believer in visualization. And I think, you know, to sit there sometimes and just think about, well, if I get the opportunity, you know, and play the game through in your mind, or you know, it's a big thing. That's massive for the world's best golfers. So how can it not be massive for everybody who's in sport? Just to visualize, you know, and run things through in their mind, because it does work. You know, concentration is vital in the sport. You know, because we talk about chair preparation. If you're not concentrating every second, that moment it catches you out when you haven't got your chair ready to play your part, hurts the team.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carl. Any other questions from anyone else? Please
Colin.
utilize the man while we got him.
Colin, if I might. England players. Do you want England players with character, or do you want characters?
What a great point. I think both. Character, yeah, because like any dressing room environment, you've got to have a laugh and enjoy each other's company. You have to. So yeah, characters are vital, and we've got a tremendous group. Even our future Prime Minister has got a bit of humour about him, and he doesn't mind if he's the butt of a lot of jokes, but he's brilliant at coming back. So we've got great banter in the dressing room, which is great. Character, which is, I think you saw character in the final, where it would have been easy to lie down and let, you know, well, we've lost, but we didn't give up. And so character, yes, but characters are vital, absolutely vital. You need to enjoy your sport. And if you don't enjoy getting together and mixing, and, you know, you're on the pitch for 40 minutes, but you're probably with each other for 2-3 weeks. If you're going away to a tournament, if you've got no fun, it's just no fun. And I must say, to add that, if you saw the video clip of our parents and carers doing Greece, then you'd see that even the carers have got great banter as well. So, you know, so no, it's a great question, Paul, but I'd say both. I'd say both. You there, Macca? We going?
Yeah. Any other questions, ladies and gents? I suppose one question from me to our attendees is, if we were to run another session with Colin, you know, whether it's talking about support for coaches or talking about techniques, etc., which could be useful for players, you know, would there be interest to want to attend another session?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been great.
Yeah, I'll be in favour of it.
Fantastic.
I think, Macca, I think what would really help, because it's all right me talking about this tennis, is if, and I won't do it, I'm looking at Chris now, if we got the outline of the tennis and how it works across to people so they can incorporate it into training, would that be a benefit?
Absolutely. I'm sure everyone, well, I'm getting 5-6 yeses now just in the chat saying yes, 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 yes. So,
yeah, because I think we probably have some film of it which we can share. So we do it in singles and in pairs, but also the basic rules, and it's quite easy to play. But it works off. We work it off a badminton court, and we just we just put the flat discs on the badminton court and we go from there. It is very, very basic, very straightforward. But, you know, if we can get the basic rules across to you, as much as we know them, because John seems to change them every time we play, but as much as we know them and get them across, then, you know, maybe that might be a thing to help the team straight away. If we could work together on that, Macca, we'll get that done. Are you discussing that, John, by any chance?
Only when I lose, Carl, I'll change the rules.
Absolutely, I thought so, yeah. Thought so, yeah. Yeah, so we'll do that, Macca. That could be a good starting point.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah.
No problem. Kizzy, do you think 4 out is the best way to play?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But it must be said that, you know, so you have to adapt to the opposition. You know, sometimes we can be an absolute 4 out and we can go with 2 square. So John and Chris almost playing off the same level. Or if we're playing against tougher and better opposition where we know we're going to be defending within maybe 1 or 2 passes, then we go with 2 pivots, one behind the other, that just gives us that bit of safety. But absolutely, I believe that 4 out is the way the game should be played and the way we should develop the game. I don't see someone just staying on the goal line and occasionally getting involved. I don't see that as much fun, really.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, just a comment from Hannah saying great to start the ball rolling. With looking at how, as coaches and players, we can contribute towards creating players with that technical ability to be able to challenge for a place in that senior squad.
Well, I think that that's the whole purpose of what we're doing, and I really look forward to it. And you know, I would like, you know, if we can, that when we go to a championship or a Premier League weekend, that we see some innovation and we see some development. You know, because I don't go every weekend, but I do go to games and I do watch film, and I would like now that you know, the coaches to challenge the players and the players to challenge the coaches.
Absolutely. I think certainly from my point of view and a lot of the coaches here tonight, we want to be giving you selection headaches. We want for you to be coming to a weekend and for you to be noticing different players going, wow, such and such a player has improved. They could slot in quite nicely and really give you a selection headache rather than just the 8, 9, 10 names that are the elite level players. We want to make sure that we've got the next generation to actually challenge those players now.
I think what we've done historically is always get a select group to come across mainly on the Sunday and play against the England team. And I think very quickly that they appreciate the levels and the standard as a team. Not when you see that every player play individually, yes, you appreciate their abilities. But I think when you put all of those parts together and it works fluidly, then you appreciate the difference in levels. And so, you know, I think we will continue to do that. You know, we will, you know, where we can, we will invite, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 to come on a Sunday to play against the whatever team is, whatever the team looks like, because we don't play a World Cup now until 2022. And I can't say to you, hand on heart, that every one of the players that went to Finland will be in that squad. I'd like to think that we would have a lot of players challenging for that space in 2 years' time. I really do. You know, and that's what I think we should work towards now. The point of this call is that how do we create more quality players for the national team?
I had a question come in saying, is there scope for a shadow squad? And I know I can initially start to answer that by saying through the talent pathway, and it'll be mentioned next week with the plans to move towards from regional talent squads to a national talent squad that can then potentially act as that stepping stone for some of our younger players to get some of that additional support and coaching to be then maybe make that gap and that jump to that senior squad that little bit smaller.
Well, what we've done, and I think people they may or may not appreciate, but in all the tournaments that we've been so far with the FA, we've taken a core of 6 players with 2 development players. And those development players have gone on to become very important to the team. Marcus was a development player when we went to Limerick. And then Matt Francis was a development player. You know, and what we want to always be able to do is have a mind that we know we are looking for the best and emerging talent. And that's, you know, I think that's the way we create the pathway. That's the way we create the opportunity. But if we can have that shadow squad as well, and that shadow squad be the team that challenges the first team on a Sunday at England training camps, that would be great. So, you know, but I think, you know, I'd prefer that they were, you know, a younger, hungry group that really want to take over, you know, from this group, you know. But it's certainly something we've spoken about a long time, and we are going to get the support for that now, which is great.
Yeah, we've got those plans in place with Will and the rest of the guys within the talent pathway staff at the FA, and it would have been the ball would have started rolling this summer had it not been for COVID, unfortunately. So obviously we look to resume that next year and look to see if we can provide those, you know, young, hungry players for you to cast an eye over and to challenge the players going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last call for questions, ladies and gents. Okay. I think if that's it, we'll leave it there. Carl, just want to say a massive thank you to you and to Chris, obviously, for his IT support. It's been superb tonight, and to be able to showcase the DNA and the philosophy. And I think hopefully, you know, we will be back playing, but this is a great start for us of, you know, showcasing what you do, how we can support our coaches going forward to develop more players and have more players at a higher level. So really appreciate your time and being willing to share that information with everyone here tonight.
Not a problem at all. And as I say, anything I can do to help going forward, I'll always make myself available.
Lovely. And I'm sure we'll be in touch again to see whatever the next step and the next workshop will be.
Well, there's a lot more pages to turn over, I can assure you. But
absolutely,
that's the beauty of the sport. We've all got a long way to go.
Wonderful stuff, Cole. Massive thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to everyone else for attending.
Thanks for listening for an hour.
Hope you got a lot from it. Certainly a lot to reflect on. I know from my point of view, it'll give me a lot to think about tonight and tomorrow and going forward. So I hope you got as much out of this as I did. And just to confirm, next week, following on from this, we've actually got our final workshop pre-Christmas, which links to this, is to do with the talent pathway itself. So we've actually got Will Perkins from the FA coming to deliver a workshop about the talent pathway for powerchair, how it works, and that's next Thursday. So that's the 10th, so a week tomorrow, and that's at 6:30, so a slightly earlier start time. So for coaches, for players that are interested in finding out more about the pathway, the opportunity is there for you, and registration is live and on the website and closes next Thursday afternoon. So if you want to find out more about that, a great opportunity for you there. Okay, other than that, guys, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you soon. Stay safe and well, and take care.
Cheers, Carl.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Colin.
Guys, thank you.
Cheers, Carl. Well done.